And good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Guardians of the CLE podcast. As you can see, we had a different intro for the episode tonight because we are hype on the podcast tonight because the Guardians are alive, they are active, and they have spent some money, James. I'm your host, Melanie Kirby, and with me here, as always, is my great co-host, James Elifritz. And James, 33 million may not be Philadelphia Phillies Trey Turner. It might $330 million money, but hey, I was jumping up and down excited. I don't know about you.
Hey, it felt like a real gift. The front office is out Christmas shopping for us, Guardian fans, and they didn't just pick up a gift card and slide it in the card to us. They delivered Josh Bell for us to play some outstanding first base this season. And it's definitely exciting to finally see some activity out of the Cleveland organization.
Yeah, and for those of you who somehow have been under a rock all day or haven't heard, the Guardians have came to an agreement with Josh Bell, a Scott Boras client. So this is a tad bit shocking in a good way. On a 2-year, $33 million contract. There is an opt-out. Josh Bell can opt out after next season. It's going to be an AAV of $16.5 million a season. So James, it's essentially Josh Bell betting on himself. He came over to the Padres from Washington in the Juan Soto deal at the trade deadline, and he wasn't very good in that couple month sample size in San Diego. He was hitting around 200. He was struggling. He came alive a tad bit in the postseason, but I think Josh Bell is looking for this to be a bounce back season for him. He's going to be in a contract year for the Guardians next season, essentially, because 9 out of 10 times these guys are going to opt out of these contracts to go make some more money. But I think it's a perfect fit for both sides. Josh Bell has already tweeted the land in all caps with a million exclamation marks. He's hype. It's a great time to be in Cleveland if you're an athlete. For fans of this city, obviously there's a lot of excitement, and I think the Guardians are just adding to this because the Guardians are not going to sign Josh Bell to a 2-year contract with an opt-out if they weren't planning on going for it this season. And we know there's a couple more holes on this team besides the first base DH. Needed a guy who can hit left-handers. We got that guy in Josh Bell. But I think this is just the beginning. And with interviews with Tito from the winter meetings after this was announced, obviously he's speaking hypothetically, but he pointed to the catcher position almost immediately as a position they're still looking to upgrade. So I think this is a great sign, James. It's been a couple years. I know in 2017 they signed Encarnacion to that big deal when they really thought they were going to make their serious World Series run. And it's just nice to see the action behind all the talk of, payroll will go up appreciably. It's just good to see that.
I think for Josh Bell, it's a great opportunity after starting with Pittsburgh, becoming an all-star, one season, going to the Nationals after they won the World Series. So he didn't really get to, obviously celebrate and win a ring there, but there was some transition going on in that organization. And then it goes to the Padres to, try to capitalize on his talents in the playoffs last year, and they fell short. So I really believe that this is the best organization that he's probably ever going to play for, probably the best dugout with Terry Francona, the coaching staff, and the best culture with the team. So I would anticipate that we're going to get the most out of his talents this coming season. And I absolutely love that he's a switch hitter. To me, looking at some of his stats, I know he's not going to steal any bases, but, batting .266 last year, 17 home runs, 71 RBIs, does get some walks. So, for Guardians fans trying to maybe find a slight comparison to Josh to previous players, maybe a mild version of Carlos Santana. What do you think, Mel?
Yeah, so the thing I love about Josh Bell is he had a down year last year, and he still had 17 home runs, which, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that would have put him second on the Guardians last season with homers. And that's in a down year. In 2021 with the Nationals, he had 27 home runs, 88 RBIs. a 123 WRC plus. He's a 2 WAR player. And you mentioned the walks. That was, the biggest thing this team struggled with was they were almost a contact team to a fault, to where they were putting the ball in play, but they weren't hitting it hard enough to hit it over the fence for home runs, and they weren't taking their walks. It's a young team. You expect, they're going to chase some pitches out of the zone. They weren't striking out, but they also weren't taking the walks, which Josh Bell does at a pretty high clip. He's got around a 12%, 12.5% walk rate compared to only a 15.8 strikeout percentage. So I think with a guy like Josh Bell, we all know that Owen Miller was not going to work at first base. He's not going to be a platoon partner. And Josh Naylor, as much as we love him, and I love Josh, but he has not shown that he can hit left-handers consistently enough. He was hitting like 173, maybe even lower than that by the end of the season. I'll have to pull that up in a second, but they needed a guy at first base, DH, who's going to be able to hit left-handed pitching. We were not good against left-handed pitching. And Tito mentioned it, in his interview I listened to today, and he's like, hey, like, we love the way our team played last year. We love this young core that we have, but we want to get better. He said they don't want to just be a feel-good story for 1 year and then go away. They know that in this league, you have to continue to improve. You cannot just, cheer on your successes of yesterday and expect to get back there the next season. Look at the Mariners in 2021. Do you think it would take them another 20 years before they saw the playoff, or 2001?
Right.
Do you think they thought it'd be another 20 years before they sniffed the playoffs again? It's like in this league, and I'm so blessed with the front office that we have, and even the Dolans to a certain extent. Chris Antonetti mentioned earlier in the week that they haven't put a set cap on the payroll. Like, obviously be smart with the money, but go improve the team. And I think they saw in a year where they were evaluating talent, they got to learn a lot about these guys, and they were able to learn, hey, we love Josh Naylor, but he could use some more time at DH to kind of hold that leg up throughout the season. I think he kind of ran out of gas down the stretch. And let's get him off his feet, against lefties. We're not putting him in the best position to succeed there. Let's bring a guy in who's proven he can hit not only lefties, but righties as well. He can pretty much play every day. So, that's obviously improving the team in that area. Then we turn it around to, what does that mean for guys like Owen Miller, Gabriel Arias, Tyler Freeman? We know that as of now, Rosario and Jimenez pretty much got the middle infield locked down, and Jose's got third base locked down for the next 7 years. So they're going to have to figure out, who do you want to keep out of Owen Miller, Gabriel Arias, Tyler Freeman, because there's another group of guys coming right behind them. And it's a good problem to have. They have this depth. Maybe they give Owen Miller some more time in AAA, or I think he'll be included in a trade. But I don't think they're going to leave him in Cleveland to just kind of like ride the pine 90% of the time.
You mentioned about, Jose being locked in at third base. He's locked in contractually, yes, to play for the Guardians with us. But as far as his position, I still think down the road, maybe it is after, if Josh Bell stays for the 2 years, maybe Jose does transition over to first base. I think we need to keep that in mind. I know that's way forward thinking. I don't think he's always going to be a third baseman. There's going to be somebody else that's going to press him defensively to probably move him out of that spot. But for now, obviously, he's ultra talented MVP type player. So there's no rush for that. But I think maybe that's a possibility in a couple years down the road that he makes that transition to first base.
Yeah, it's a great point. And this 2-year contract with Bell also kind of lines up to John Kenzie Noel's progression through the minor leagues. He's in the upper minors right now. He's still young and he's still got a lot of strikeout concerns, but he plays first base, little bit of the outfield, some at DH. So he's another guy I'd keep in mind when we're talking about first base. in the future as well. But just while I got this page pulled up, last year, Josh Naylor hit, where'd it go? Josh Naylor hit 173 versus lefties with a 53 WRC plus, 237 bat pip, and an almost 30% strikeout percentage.
And
So
Mel,
again-
I got Josh Bell's left-handed versus left-handed pitching stats right here too, if you want them.
Yeah, that was Josh
batted
Naylor.
270.
Did I say Josh Naylor?
Yeah, I know.
Oh,
No,
okay.
you said Naylor, but if we're going to compare the two, Bell batted 276, 7 home runs, 32 RBIs, 24 walks. Obviously had a lot more at bats versus the right-handed pitchers, 371 versus 181. But the sample that he got, that where he's batting on the right side of the plate, batting 276. I'll take that after the numbers you just read for Mr. Naylor. So
yeah, it was always a perfect fit. Like, it almost made too much sense. And the only question was, do the Guardians do business with Scott Boras? Traditionally, the answer has been no. But this deal, I think, just made too much sense. And, they got Josh Bell. They convinced Josh Bell to take that shorter deal, bet on himself, and see what happens after that, which honestly works out well for both sides. But kind of transitioning into the next guy who, from the very jump, has made almost too much sense to just not finally happen. It's funny, our very own Joey Schneider, he said anytime he sees a Sean Murphy tweet on Twitter, he looks for my name to be on it. And I'm in almost every single one of them. I came up, and obviously the guy's Sean Murphy. And if you've been listening to the podcast, I've been screaming about him since the trade deadline. And it's been one of the biggest stories of the winter meeting so far. So there's been a ton of rumors going around. Not as much smoke in the last couple days or so, but a lot of teams entering the chat who don't really belong there. And, we've heard the Astros in recent days. Sunday night, Mark Feinsland tweeted that the Braves were close to acquiring Murphy. The Braves have 3 catchers and not many prospects they're gonna deal that aren't already on the major league roster. That never really made sense. The Cubs are kind of in there now. The Arizona Diamondbacks randomly popped up today while I was scrolling Twitter. And what I think this is I think Oakland's they're being a little irrational stage right now. These are all leverage leaks. Like, when these things get leaked to the media, we want to kind of think, does this make sense? And who does this benefit if this is out in the press? Right. And we know that the Guardians, they don't operate like that. Again, we didn't hear one thing we heard John Heyman report that we were interested in Josh Bell, but nothing that anything was imminent until it was done. And that's how the Guardians typically operate. Whereas Oakland, they know there's a free agent market with Wilson Contreras, Christian Vasquez, Mike Zunino, and then there's other trade candidates, mostly from Toronto. When you look at Alejandro Kirk, Danny Jensen, and Gabriel Moreno. So they kind of got that first domino. They hold the cards with Sean Murphy right now. In my opinion, the big 3 are Cleveland, St. Louis, Tampa Bay. Those are the 3 logical fits that I see. And they're also the 3 teams who I think have the prospect capital to be able to put together a pretty decent package. As of today, it's starting to come out that Oakland wants more major leaguers in the deal, not so much like lower minors guys. And also, I'm having a feeling that Oakland might have their eyes. Let's say Oakland has their eyes set on one of our big 3, Gavin Williams, Daniel Espino, Tanner Bybee, and Chris Antonetti's like, no thanks. We're still going to stick with, let's say, Brian Rocchio, George Valera, and Joey Cantillo or Logan Allen. Maybe even a Tyler Freeman or, Will Benson is like a depth piece, right? Mm-hmm. And they're like, call us back when you're serious. Click. So then Oakland's going to call around. They're going to leak stuff to the press to make Cleveland think, hey, we're really close to a deal elsewhere. You might want to come off one of those big 3. And we know Chris Antonetti doesn't get rattled. He typically doesn't budge. in these kinds of scenarios. And Chris Antonetti's like, no, thanks. We're still okay. We're actually on the phone making another deal right now. So again, you let us know when you're ready to talk. And that's kind of, I think it's just kind of a back and forth. It's been said the Cardinals would rather take on more money than give up more prospects. And the Rays are still holding back a couple of their top prospects. So I think everybody's kind of in this. They're not pushing all their chips to the center of the table yet. But the longer it goes on, the better it is for the Guardians.
So, yeah, Tom Withers tweeted out, said that Guardians manager Terry Francona was asked at the winter meetings if he's concerned about not currently having a catcher. And to quote Terry, says, I'm being honest as I can. When the season starts, we will have a catcher catching. I promise you. So he's not worried about it. We know from an offensive standpoint, whatever happens, we're going to get an improvement. Now, defensively behind the plate, I still think that whoever is in that position, and yeah, we're both, hoping it's Sean Murphy. But I think whoever that we have back there is still going to be capable of managing our pitching staff, calling a good game, be able to throw runners out. But yeah, let's think positive. It's Christmas time, right? So, and
for me, it's too early in the game to panic. And if anything, today's signing of Josh Bell made me more confident that this team's serious this offseason. This isn't all lip service like we got the past couple of years. They identified their guy in Josh Bell. They went and they got him. Probably paid a little more than they wanted, but it's 1 year it's 2 years with an opt-out. That's something that they can live with. And it's been no secret. They've been on Sean Murphy since last trade deadline. They thought they were close last trade deadline. They weren't willing to come off one of those big three pitchers I mentioned. And Oakland decided to hold on to him. There's been talk that if Oakland doesn't get I think Ken Rosenthal had an article today where he mentioned, if Oakland doesn't get the package they want, they're just not going to deal him. And I think that's a bluff. Like, I'm going to call Oakland's bluff on that one. They gain nothing from holding on to him for another half a season. If anything, his value is only going to decrease because he's going to have less control. And you also risk injury. I mean, they were just in this situation last year with Frankie Montas. They didn't deal him after the lockout like they did Manea. They held on till Montas until the trade deadline. He ended up getting hurt prior to the trade deadline. They dealt him to the Yankees, but they didn't get the package that they thought they'd get for Montas. So I'm still convinced that Murphy gets dealt here in the next week, if not tomorrow. I think, again, it's all leverage leaks at this point. And I think Oakland's going to realize they don't want to overshoot their mark with this leverage stuff. And I think they're teetering on that line of they're getting a little too greedy. Like, you're not dealing Shohei Ohtani. It's Sean Murphy. I appreciate, he's the best trade chip you have right now. Go and stock up. But at this point, take the best prospect package you got, deal your guy, move on to the next thing. Because what's going to happen is those other options that I identified, serious teams like the Guardians, the Cardinals, and the Rays, they're going to get sick of waiting. They're going to get frustrated of the games that Oakland's playing, and they're going to go and jump on those other options. And then what's going to happen? Oakland's going to get left without a seat at the table, and they're going to be stuck with their guy, and they got nothing for him. So I think at this point, I think what happened is Chris Antonetti put the A's in timeout, kind of stopped answering their calls for a minute, and he's like, I'm going to go pivot, and I'm going to go get Josh Bell before it's too late. And I think we saw that. Like, Chris Antonetti's not done with Sean Murphy, but he went and he made a move. He helped another part of the team get better, and he'll go address the Murphy thing afterwards. But I still like our chances. I'm not panicking yet.
It always comes back to trusting our front office. They make great trades, and then, it's funny how we get Josh Bell today. And what team did he just come from?
San Diego.
Yeah, I mean, we love to trade with the Padres. Now we just, obviously this was free agency and it wasn't a trade, but that's a good sign for us because when players leave San Diego to come to our team, they should have a good season. But yeah, as far as Sean Murphy goes, I was looking even at his fantasy stats last year, 4th rated catcher. And of course, the gentleman that's in front of him, though, Varsho from Arizona, is catcher eligible, but does play some outfield to help beef up its stats. But Real Muto is number 1, number 2, Will Smith. But Murphy's 4. So there's a big distance between Murphy and Kirk's stats as the 5th catcher as far as from a fantasy perspective. A rating of 235 for Murphy and Kirk being 499. So there's a huge gap between the top 4 and then 5 through the rest of the league. So adding Murphy would just definitely be that offensive pop that we need at the bottom of our lineup.
Yeah, I saw a Goofy Cardinals fan was tweeting, and he wanted them to be all in on Contreras because he said Sean Murphy's not good because he's a guy who only looks at batting average in the year 2022. And he said that a 20% K rate was ridiculously high, which actually couldn't be further from the truth. It's actually below league average. And for a catcher, it's actually extraordinary because we know we got to look at catcher offensive stats a little bit differently than we would a shortstop or a center fielder. They're not known to have as much offense as the other guys on the diamond. But Sean Murphy is not only a Gold Glove defender, but he is definitely top 4 offensive catchers in the game of baseball. And he's under control for another 3 seasons, which is something the Guardians love. And I think also what makes it so much more imperative to upgrade this catching position, whether it's Murphy or if they lose out on Murphy, calling Toronto about their 3 guys, or maybe even Christian Vasquez in free agency, is when I was reading Zach Meisel's article the other day, and Mandy Bell kind of piggybacked that in her article last night, is they don't even expect Bo Naylor to be on the opening day roster in 2023. And I think a lot of us kind of had Bo penciled in there and thought he'd split time with whatever guy they acquire. But when I read that, it kind of opened my eyes like, oh, they're definitely taking catcher seriously. They're not just going to go re-sign Austin Hedges because they need a main guy. So I'd be shocked if the Guardians either don't land Murphy or come away with the other couple big 2, Kirk, Jansen, Zanino, but we'll have to see. But James, before we get out of here, you want to talk about the all MLB teams that were announced who had a lot of Guardians theme to them?
Well, who's our favorite reliever? Emmanuel Clase. So
Clase is in session.
Yep. Makes the first team all MLB team, but also was announced today for him the AL reliever of the year.
That was so cool.
Yes. And and then I looked at 2, we had Edwin Diaz was in the National League.
Yeah.
If you look back a couple years ago, Diaz was having some struggles. Like he got hot, and I don't know if you remember, he struggled real bad with the Mets. It was right around the same time, I believe, as when Clase had his PED suspension. So there's 2 guys that overcame some adversity off the field to gather their careers and look at them. Best relievers in baseball.
Diaz just got paid this offseason too.
Yeah.
He signed a nice little deal with
sure did.
Those trumpets are going to be playing for a long time in Queens.
That's right.
And then Andres Jimenez was, in my opinion, snubbed on the first team. I think the voting system's a little whack for these all MLB teams, but nonetheless, Andres Jimenez was named the second baseman on the second team all MLB, which is still a huge accomplishment for him. He's over in Venezuela right now, playing in their winter league, playing some shortstop because he's going to represent Venezuela in the World Baseball Classic, which I know is a huge honor for him. He's really excited about that. So let's just pray for health and success for our guys who are playing in the WBC this spring.
Absolutely. It was just such a great season for him. He was the one, like I talked about in a previous pod, that I didn't have a lot of expectations for him this season. I just wanted to see him grow, and I did not expect him to grow at the rate he did. When I always look back at the Lindor trade, it was Rosario, Jimenez. It's like, which one of these guys is going to step up and be the top piece of that trade? And, Rosario had a good season, but Jimenez, just an outstanding season. Just really blew me away this year. Also Clase, with how well the level from a Major League Baseball standpoint to be first team and second team is very impressive for this season.
And I just think, like, if ever there's a moment this winter meetings where we feel disappointed or say we lose out on Sean Murphy and we're feeling a bit dejected, I think it's important we all look back at what the immediate short term of this franchise would have looked like if Jose Ramirez did not take the hometown discount last spring and sign that 7-year extension. He would have got traded before the season started. I bet we don't make the playoffs last season, and who knows what, last season, this off season and next season would even look like. Jose taking that hometown discount and just being the face of this franchise is allowing all these other things to happen. It's allowing me to have MLB Network on in the background while I work to see if the Guardians are mentioned in any rumors or any signings, or refreshing Twitter every 5 minutes to get Sean Murphy updates like the psycho I'm acting like.
You really do that?
Oh yeah. I think I broke my Twitter feed, and I'm not even being sarcastic. I actually heard other people. I really did think I did, but then I heard from other people that Twitter was acting a little goofy. But my feed wasn't refreshing, and I'm like, where are my people at? I don't see. Why are all my tweets about the Browns game from 2 days ago? Where's all my baseball stuff? I panicked. I deleted my app. I reinstalled it. And it's fun. This is the fun stuff. I do think it's important that we as fans have fun with these rumors, because the winter meetings is like the 3-day period of the off season where rumors are just flying. There's actually some chaos and some signings, some trades. It's like the most exciting time of the MLB offseason, and it's a sport that needs to generate some excitement. I think last season helped, the Aaron Judge 62 home runs, and I think there were a lot of Julio Rodriguez, things like that helped the game. But all the other sports, we've talked about it before, their off seasons are a lot more exciting. I think it's important that we do have fun with these rumors. Talk about them. It generates discussion and excitement amongst fan bases. Even I've talked with a lot of Oakland A's fans this past week. I've talked with some Cardinals fans. I always got a few Minnesota people I talk to, but it even generates that conversation across fan bases, which I think is all good stuff for the game.
Yeah, and they just MLB Network showing, and this is the first ever MLB draft lottery that the Pirates have won the first overall pick. So just the draft lottery in itself in baseball. It's great. I mean, there isn't a draft lottery I haven't enjoyed watching.
Yeah. It's cool that MLB is doing this now. And they got I think the Rule 5 draft is on tomorrow at 5:30. I think it's on MLB.com, but either way, they're putting it kind of in a time slot where people can tune into it if they want. And another thing to look out for is the Guardians obviously have a few guys they could lose, but they also have an open roster spot. I don't know if this Bell signing becomes official or not, but they have an open roster spot. They could add somebody. But I'm wondering if like Murphy and some other guys may get traded after the Rule 5 draft. Just say Oakland had some interest in one of our guys that could possibly be selected. They're going to wait and see if he gets selected to see if they need to worry about keeping him on the 40-man roster. So little like ins and outs, little details like that could possibly affect the trade market a little bit. We'll have to wait and see, but that's tomorrow at 5:30. So next week we'll be able to talk about if we lost anybody or picked anybody up, and hopefully, some more trades or good things we happen to see over the next week.
Yeah, one of the things Francona talked about on MLB Now, he mentioned that the success of the season has expedited their aggressiveness for this offseason. So I don't want to go all Charles Barkley on you and guarantee, right?
Yeah.
But I think by next time when we record next week, we're going to be able to talk about the Sean Murphy trade, and hopefully that he is going to be a Cleveland Guardian.
Hot takes. Was that music like reckless speculation? Um, before we head out too, what do you think about this Aaron Judge sweepstakes? Where are you leaning on that? He's
I
got
want
what?
him to go to the Giants.
Absolutely.
I mean,
I,
it would help us for sure.
I
You
think they
know,
get him. I personally, that stuff that came out of his Times article today, it's all leaning San Francisco to me. And that may just be me wanting him out of New York because I foresee some battles with the Yankees ahead in the playoffs. But, he's married to his high school sweetheart. And 10 years ago, he said, in 10 years, I want you to be my wife and I want to be wearing a San Francisco Giants uniform because he's from the Bay Area. Well, he married the high school sweetheart last year and he has a chance to be in a Giants uniform this year. I mean, we're talking 9 years and what are they pushing? $350 million, 360?
yeah. I just want to see him hit. Make sure if he goes to the Giants, please hit some in McCovey Cove.
Oh,
Take him to
yeah.
right field, will you?
And he deserves that. Like, he got booed in New York. And he thinks a big part of that is that the Yankees leaked the terms of the contract that he rejected back in the spring before the season started. And that rubbed him the wrong way because from guys that cover that team, they said he's a very private guy. So I'm thinking San Francisco.
And the
But all
Giants.
right.
Did you see the Giants did sign Mitch Haniger?
Oh, I was thinking he might be an option, but
Yep. So we'll see.
the hot stove is heating up. So we'll
That's
talk
right.
about all this next week. But I want to thank you all for listening. Josh Bell is a Cleveland Guardian. Let's hope we have more to talk about next week. In the meantime, stay safe, stay healthy, and go Guardians.
See everybody next week.